Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. Welcome to Soccer Talk. I'm Ben Brackett with my good buddy and co-host, Blake Siebers. Siebes, what's up, man?
Hey, Ben, good to be back in the studio doing a little pod. We have a good one today.
Yeah, we had our really good friend, Jack Simons on the pod, the Lincoln men's coach, or Lincoln boys, I guess. I don't know what you call these guys these days. They're young adult males that play soccer for Lincoln. So here we go. These guys are a program that has been on the rise for, 4 or 5 years now, or really been successful and just like knocking at the door on the state tournament, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We get into that. And, I think it was one of the more impactful podcasts I've ever listened to. I really enjoyed it, and the passion and just the, I don't know. Again,
just dedicated.
Absolutely. Dedication, just spilled out. And so it was awesome for me listening to him talk.
Yeah, a little inspirational. You caught me choking up a couple times and getting little tears in my eyes because I've coached some of these guys that you talked about, but also just thinking about players and just, kids, young guys at that age where they're dealing with whatever it is and how they figure out how to grow into young men and young women, young people. I don't know, man. It gets me going a little bit. And Jack is just so passionate about it, obviously.
Yeah, and I think, again, we talk about in the podcast, things don't change overnight, which is unfortunate, but it's in the right track there on the south side on Southwest 9th.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're doing a lot of cool things. Let's talk to Jack a little bit about those. We'll hear about a little bit about their challenges, but then just all the hope and positive stuff that's going around his team right now. Okay, Jack Simons, welcome to the pod. How you doing today?
All right, guys. Thank you for having me at all.
No, we're excited to have you here. It's going to be fun. I'm sure you've listened to the pod before, right?
Yeah, and especially, I'll tell you, I'll admit, I've fallen off, lapsed for the last 9 months. Weird number, right? Yeah. But then just knowing I was coming in here, but I also saw your last 2 pods with Justin Dorster, and you had Jack on before that, and those are 2 guys that I actually know, and I don't know a ton of people in the Iowa soccer scene still. So listen to those whole things, really enjoyed it. Gave me some things to think about and talk about.
Well, I wonder if you picked up on any themes.
I know, for one, he came empty-handed, Ben.
Oh.
Although
he did. Well, he knew he came in.
He did. Again, we'll be checking our mailbox just like we are for Jack and John, and then Justin as well. So I guess the first question we always ask is this the first pod you've ever been on?
It is, yeah.
Welcome.
I have not had occasion. I'm thrilled.
I could tell.
Well, so, you mentioned just not knowing a lot of people in Iowa soccer, which has a lot to do with just your, I'm guessing sort of your story and what brought you to Des Moines. And, you've been coaching with the Lincoln program now. I couldn't tell you how many years, but I'm guessing it's
I think 6.
Okay, I was gonna say 7 or 8, but so you don't have any gray hairs yet, though. So, but yeah, so I can't believe you came just to coach Lincoln. But tell us a little bit about your story, how you grew up playing in the game, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think in the end I might be able to conclude that I did come just to coach Lincoln.
I love that.
We'll see if it ends that way. Yeah, I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado, all my life. Started playing park and rec soccer, age 5 or whatever. Got into club a little late, and maybe my club experience is something we'll talk about in general. Hit on some things he talked about in the last couple shows. Didn't have a good club experience. Mid-90s, Southern Colorado. I don't know
how old are you, Jack?
I'm 37.
Okay, so you're an 83?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're 84s.
Okay.
He's the elder statesman of the pod.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, you don't get to be the oldest very often.
So I bet we have some similar experiences. It wasn't necessarily a negative club experience. I felt that for the most part, it was all just so new to that region and to much of the country. You're playing for dads, you're playing for nice people as your coaches. But I bounced in and out of club teams because I was just unhappy. I wanted to have fun, and I wasn't necessarily having fun. Started to really have fun playing the game as a high school soccer player. Coronado High School, Colorado Springs, right next to Garden of the Gods. Had a ball there and played for a wrestling coach from Nebraska who he wouldn't tell you he knew a ton about soccer, but just drove us so hard, and I loved playing for him. Probably still my actual favorite coach, just because he pushed us the way you push wrestlers, which is to make them puke or almost puke. So from there, I went to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, which is a really good D3 program. Play a lot of the schools around here. We played Wartburg, we played Central, we played Simpson. Over the years, played everybody.
It's a pretty unique academic school too, right?
It is, yeah. So it's on the block system, just like Cornell, which I loved as a humanities student, English major, film major.
So that's like what you take like a month or 6 weeks of like really intense one course at a time?
One class at a time for 3.5 weeks. Okay. At most, you take it a double block for 7 weeks. And so, yeah, like as a literature student, you're asked to read a whole novel every night, things like that. You know, like Be Here Tomorrow. So in 3.5 weeks, you're reading 30 books potentially, and just crazy. Then if you take an easy class, which I took a couple, oh my God.
It's a joke. I mean,
yeah, so
some of them.
It's 8 blocks, and most kids plan their academic calendar to have a real pre-K class 8 blocks so they can just go to the mountains a lot.
I was gonna say, I guess at the winter time, you're probably people sneaking out to the mountains a lot.
Yeah, and that, you know, I'll talk a little bit about the team. For that reason, its location. People come from all over the country and all over the world to go to CC, to go to Colorado College. I had friends who it seemed like they only went there because they had condos in the mountains. And these are people on the East Coast, West Coast that have that much money.
It's like good friends to have.
Yeah, and good people too. I mean, one of my dear friends is from Des Moines, and he was one of my college roommates. And I'd say is a reason I ended up coming here ultimately. But
name drop for us?
His name's Cooper Hubble. He's of the Hubble family.
Sure.
And he's an absolute sweetheart and has been a huge help to our program. And he's introduced me to so many good people here as well. Just wonderful family.
Is he here too?
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That must be fun to have. I don't have any college friends or college teammates that are close. We have friends, obviously, but that's one of those things I always kind of I missed a little bit.
Yeah, and I still miss it here also. Like, he's got 3 kids, all under 6, and I got 2 under 5. And so we love each other from afar. But we sure don't see each other much. But God, I love that dude. And I mean it. He'll hear this, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Cooper. I had come here in college on my way to the Midwest one summer, to Michigan, and I'd stopped to see him and his dad for a couple of nights, and just a couple of wild nights when we were 20, 21, sold me on Des Moines enough that ultimately, well, I'll get to that.
How'd you actually get here? So you went to college?
All right, so I go to CC,
yeah.
went to Colorado College. Amazing players, and it's one of those D3 programs where, and this is an interesting thing about the soccer world, where you get just absolute great players at every level. It just isn't like that to me for D3 basketball, for example. I could play D3 basketball. I felt pretty strongly, but I could not and I can play with D1 soccer players.
I was going to say the quality of and difference between D3 and D1 or NAI or D2, whatever it is. There are certainly some players that like there's a reason they're playing one or the other. Maybe they're really, really good or really not that good, but the difference overall is not significant.
No. Whereas if I put me on a basketball court with D1 basketball players, it'd be hilarious, man.
Yeah, well, they'd be dunking on you.
Yeah.
That'd be the difference. Soccer is the great equalizer.
So many issues.
Yes.
So I played with some wonderful players from all over the place. But I'll tell you also, I had an extremely troubled time in college. Had a very rough last year of high school for various reasons, very real reasons, out of my control. And then I got to college and I was 18, not far from home, but far enough from home to really start to slip and forget about a lot of things. Forgot about the game, forgot about a lot of relationships, things like that. I won't belabor it, but I'll tell you that those 4 years were pretty dissatisfying from a soccer standpoint and just from an overall emotional standpoint. I was just going through a lot. And at that age, when you're in it, you can't really see out of it. You just kind of keep going. And I kept going. I survived. And
how good were you guys?
So we had the National Player of the Year my first senior year. I did a super senior year mostly for the reasons I stated. But I had a lot of injuries as well.
What position did you play?
Persist. Right wing primarily. Really felt you could put me anywhere. Just a really scrappy player.
I could see that for sure.
Oh yeah.
Just on your attitude alone. I feel like you love a scrap.
I love a scrap and I love to run. Could always just run entire games, and I can't play anymore.
I was going to say, do you lace them up anymore?
My knee's just shot. I'm going to need a third surgery. That'll be the final one here soon, just to get me into retirement. But yeah, no, we were really good. Each year we're going, 19-3, records like that, and then flaming out in the playoffs. And part of the problem with Colorado College is it's an independent. So you're not coming out of a conference. Well, you weren't back then. I guess they've joined if you know Trinity University in Texas, they've joined that conference. So now it's harder to get an automatic bid because of Trinity. But back then it was also really hard. You had to be chosen as an independent. And I don't know, just a lot of issues within that team. Guys I loved, but God, everybody loved to party more than anything.
Yeah,
it's a real identity.
I think that, and I might be wrong, but I think that back in the late 90s, early 2000s, college soccer culture was a little bit more. There was a lot of partying going on. I think and I might be wrong about that, but we like to have a good time.
Yeah, and do you think it's because social media now, where you can get in a little more trouble nowadays than you?
Trouble.
Yeah, that's true. Than you could back then. I don't know.
It's a number of factors. Think
about like 2003, 2004 was when Arsenal were the Invincibles, and that was like Arsene Wenger was like, let's not drink, let's have good diets. Like, so it started that. I think that was like when it started, and that was when we were just kind of finishing up. But I mean, we had a 48-hour rule, which was a good rule, I think. But people definitely went all the way up to the threshold.
Was our rule too, but I couldn't even.
Rules are made to be broken.
But I will say also that looking back at, and all my teammates who would hear this, who I really love, I think they would agree, and they definitely know this about me. Like, if I could redo it, I would. And that informs really my whole attitude, but especially towards soccer, is once I got done with it, I'm realizing, well, that was that. When else will I get to play soccer every single day, have trainers looking after me, have multiple fields and be,
that's
loved on campus.
That's kind of guided though how you approach stuff now, right? As far as that experience, ultimately shapes who you are and what you believe and whatnot now.
Yeah, no, I think it has to. So we'll get to the next chapter. I'm really thankful for my time at CC. Wonderful place, incredible education. I should add that my dad taught there for 45 years or something. He taught English and film there. And I just was back visiting them a couple weeks ago.
So you mentioned you're an English guy too?
Yeah.
So you guys probably have some lively discussion over dinner, I would guess.
All we talk about is movies.
Citizen Kane. Do you remember that scene in the 32nd minute when the camera zoomed out?
Oh, he writes books about film, and
Like, sounds like he knows what he's
I
talking
took
about
one
almost.
like intro to cinema class or something
Good.
like that, and I remember just some of the things in that.
Yeah, my one film class was Celluloid Jesus in film.
interesting.
Yeah, wow, we like watched The Matrix. It's great.
Okay, yeah, because you could take that in a million different ways. Christ figures in
Mhm.
film. Oh my God.
Listen, we
Sign
just
me
got. We'll have another pod later where we just talk about movies.
Sure,
That'll be good.
Sure. So CC, I got done at CC. I did do a super senior year, which only afforded me like 7 games or something after I ruined my toe. Actually, I had a horrible turf toe, but I played those last 7 games, and it was the first time I played like with a totally clear head, and I knew who I was, and it was amazing. I scored a couple great goals and got to finish it out right. While I was a senior at CC, I met this guy named Alec Rico, who had played at CC years before me, and he'd started an organization in New Mexico, building soccer programs on American Indian, Native American reservations. So I kind of just followed my heart down there after I graduated and worked for him, which really endears me to Kick It Forward, having been on the other side, having worked daily for a soccer nonprofit. That was an amazing experience. New Mexico is so beautiful, and the people were wonderful. And while I was down there in Albuquerque, I also worked for the Albuquerque Journal, covering primarily soccer, high school soccer.
That's pretty cool.
High school basketball.
So there's a New Mexico team in the USL something
Yes,
championships. Maybe were they around back when you were down there? Okay.
They weren't, but
That was back when New Mexico, like university or whatever.
they were
University
awesome.
of New Mexico. That's when they were like Final Four. And
Yeah.
like, yeah. they were
That's
really
where. Remember, that's where the old Banditos
good. Yeah.
were.
The Seavers. That's like
For
one of my.
sure.
That's like
Yeah,
my,
you remember? Okay.
This is like my best recruiting story. I got a handwritten letter from them, and I was like, let me check this out. They went 0-18 that year, and I was
Oh.
like, no way. And by the time I'm a sophomore, we're sitting there watching them in College Cup, and we're sitting at home. I'm just like,
Yeah, they were really impressive.
I don't know that I would have played. But
Yeah, that's sad. 'Cause they folded their program within the last.
Last 2-3 years.
Okay.
they were getting like 7,000 people in games and stuff too. Like, it was
Yeah,
it
those
was a big
games were
deal.
great fun. They had an actual venue for them. It was really cool.
Sorry, so you're writing for the Albuquerque Journal.
Yeah, so just soccer. Everything was soccer, writing about soccer and working, coaching soccer in the afternoons, running these clinics and doing administrative stuff in the mornings. And when my 2 years were up down there, I had to decide what's next. And working with kids as much as I did while I was in New Mexico, coaching a couple of teams and creating tournaments, that's like when it sealed it for me, that kind of what I wanted to do is work with kids, maybe through soccer, definitely just work with kids daily. Not write about them, I guess would be my point. That I decided that journalism, I thought I wanted to be a sports journalist, and I was tired of writing about people. I wanted to just be doing this stuff. So went back to school to be a teacher, started coaching at my old high school.
I have to make an interjection. Some people say that writers are basically like signing up to give themselves homework for the rest of their lives. So he decided to be a teacher so he could assign homework for the rest of his life.
There you go. And I love to write also, but I don't like being told what to write.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
so God bless softball, but as soon as they told me to go cover a softball game, I quit. It's like I can't pretend to even know what's going on out there. Yeah.
No, so I just wanted to
Point taken.
yeah.
No, it's true. I
A
really.
deadline. Like, yeah, you have to get this in by.
Yeah, and really what I wanted, and really philosophically, I knew I just wanted control of my space and control of my days, sort of. And maybe a lot of teachers don't think of it that way, but I really do. You shut the door or leave me out on a field with some kids, like that's our world, and we can get a lot done, or not a lot done, but almost always meaningful. So I became a teacher, started coaching at my old high school, then took over the program at the school I was teaching at. Simultaneously was coaching for Pikes Peak Rush, which is part of Colorado Rush. That was all great. And then I got laid off and needed a job and needed a change. Just
and
a
you're 21 right
change.
now at this point.
27?
Sure.
About 27. Yeah. So back in my hometown, feeling just a little bit in a rut.
Weird time in your 20s.
Yeah, because I'm looking at my friends who are starting to settle down. I'm looking at my other friends who are still way too wild. Didn't feel that I belonged in either camp. And I concluded that I'm going to get out of here and sort of limit my distractions, figure some things out if possible. And one of my assistant principals in Colorado Springs took the job at Lincoln as the principal. Lincoln, Paul Williamson's his name. Good guy, good friend. And he just asked me if I wanted to come. I don't know that he thought I would say yes. And people tend to be shocked here when I tell them I moved here from there for just the reasons that you would expect. The sun, the mountains. And that's all real.
The sun. That's like the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sun,
It's sunny every day.
oh my God.
At least 300 days. Yeah. But I said yes. And I'm glad I did. I will tell you, I initially came out here, I thought I wanted to be a college coach. Because I just felt like I was a good coach and that I could climb those ranks if I did so deliberately. There's also no small colleges other than Colorado College in pretty much the whole mountain time zone. So I knew from many road trips that there's tons of small colleges out here. So I thought, at the least, get myself out there, get on with a college program, see where it takes me, whatever. But then I took over at Lincoln, and that happened pretty quickly. I think it was my third year at Lincoln that I took the boys varsity over.
Who did you assist?
Scott Bogue, who was the girls coach for the last few years prior to this last year. And he's the new coach at North Polk, the new girls coach at North Polk, which sounds like a great job to me.
So we know the boys coach, Josh Birchmeyer.
Is that a new program out there?
No, we went to, remember they were the number one seed there in the last high school tournament. So 2 years ago,
sure,
that was held, and they the number one seed, they went down.
They call Blake the elephant because he doesn't forget anything. So annoying. Because I'm always like,
sure.
Well,
let me say, like, Scott is a wonderful guy. I still think of him as like the godfather of our program because he had my program, the boys program, for like 20 years prior to me. And
did you teach there as well?
Yeah, he taught science. We ultimately taught right next door to each other. It was just wonderful. It was great fun to have all of our kids right there, and he could just like bang on the wall. Here, a dear friend of mine, he was the officiant at my wedding.
Father Scott is what I would call him.
The Godfather.
No, he's the officiant. I've been an officiant.
Yeah.
You are called father
Padre
when you are an officiant.
My bad.
Yeah. So Scott, and there's a little story to it. I straight up asked him if I could have his program. Ultimately, I felt so strongly about it. And it was only the second time I've ever done that. I did that in New Mexico once also, where I was just like, God, I got to have this team. And to some guys, that would be a lot to just like, dude, can I have your whole team? This thing you've been working on for 20 years. But in the moment, I think it made sense. And I felt that it made sense to him. And he was super gracious. And him being able to slide over to the girls also is like so natural. And that was a great way to start. As just, I didn't feel like I was starting from scratch. I could see all that was there. and I was ready to get to work on it. So I took the job at Lincoln really expecting not a lot, not a ton. Like knowing where the program's history had been, I wanted to improve it. But I didn't necessarily expect us to do some of the things we've done over the past 5 years or so that I credit the players above all with, but really proud of for the whole program.
Well, there's a couple of local, high school soccer players. I know that back in like the late 90s and early 2000s, you would never have been talking about Lincoln in the sub-state final. And, you wouldn't be talking about how big of a travesty it was that in the past 5 years they haven't been in the state tournament. And that's a testament to you. I mean, obviously the players too, but.
I mean, we always looked forward to playing Lincoln.
I didn't. I didn't get to play in those games.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Big Time, Mr. Big Time Gatorade Player of the Year over here.
Well, Johnson needed to run those scores up in those games. So
yeah, I mean that
wasn't as big of a deal for Valley.
And like I said, I'm sure you. Back in the day, Lincoln just didn't have. I mean, I'm sure the numbers are part of it too, and it's. I kind of like where this is going though right now, as far as where you're. So you take over.
Yeah.
And
you say you've been there about 7 years?
Yeah. God, it's weird that I can't just tell you. The COVID thing, losing a season has thrown my math off.
That's what I mean, and like,
for sure.
That's why I was like, you lost.
For sure.
There was no state tournament last
19.
year.
Correct. That would have been the 2000.
No, there's no state tournament in 2020.
God.
So again, there we go, right there.
See?
So you've been there around 7, 8 years, 6, 7, 8 years. So talk about kind of when you those first couple years of taking over Lincoln, because I think there's some, for those listeners that do or don't know, I mean, there's definitely some different challenges teaching, coaching in the Des Moines public system as there are elsewhere.
Absolutely. First year, awesome year. Just so much emotion in that team. I don't know. You guys probably know Amilcar Soriano. I don't know. You would know him. He works with Jaime.
So he's still around.
Sure. Yeah. Great little midfielder, defender. He was my captain, which made things incredibly easy. He also hooked me up with players from AIB, like Jaime, like my assistant Lorenzo, who helped out the program immediately. One of the hardest things, you come to a new town, you got to build a staff. Jesus.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to start. I had no staff. And he, just one of my players, just made the connection that got me going with. While AIB was going, they were just feeding us coaches, and it was just right down the street. It was a really solid relationship for us, and that made that season coaching Amilcar, I don't know if you remember the name Chewy Castruita, but he was.
I coached Chewy.
Love Chewy.
What a player!
Dude, he was 5'4".
So I had this B team. This is so when Sporting Iowa merged.
Yeah.
The A team, Ozzy got the A team. I mean, we were merging our two teams, so I lost all my A team players.
Sure.
And I coached the B team, which was fine. But then that second year, I was still kind of bummed about it. And Chewy comes out of nowhere, and this dude was scoring goals all over the place.
Yeah, and that's what he did. And Chewy and Amilcar, as much as any of my players, and I had them right away, just embody like the real spirit that I would want our program to have moving forward. Just always did what was right, and that's awesome that you coached Chewy. He's an amazing kid to me because couldn't really do a ton anywhere else except in the 18. You're like, dude, you can't even hold the ball.
He was incredible. He would score goals just out of nothing, and he ran the box well, and it wasn't super technical, but he
really cared too.
Yeah,
just big time, and cared in the classroom as well. Both those guys. So those guys I immediately just felt like it was a great decision, and that was from the start. I think I'll go back to, I guess it was probably our second season, but, we started to play really close games against some of the top teams. We'd go to Iowa City and just play these absolute dogfights with City High. They'd always be ranked second, ranked first. They're always undefeated pretty late, things like that. And that's when I started to be like, oh man, we might actually have something here, you know? Like, I would have been fine if what we were doing was just playing for one big upset victory a year, try to get second round of the playoffs, whatever. As long as we're satisfied with our effort, that's fine. Then the talent started rolling in. So we tend to say that it was the arrival of Refuge Barblower and his brother Kevin that transformed Lincoln soccer. We were going to be a good team, a good program, technical program. We can move the ball. We play a nice, typically Latino brand of soccer. That is not my preferred style. It just isn't. And this is always a thing for us because I was much more of a just attack with speed and power on the outsides. You know, probably the brand you guys would have played at Valley and Johnston. Some variation thereof. But Lincoln was playing that way, and it was just too slow. It wasn't going to work. It was nice. But then we got these guys, Refuge and Kevin, transferred
Pretty
from
direct guys.
Kentucky. And I was like, yeah. And so it's almost the opposite Refuge is similar to Chewy in some ways. Sort of terrible technically also, but God, if you got him in space,
So yeah.
he wrecked the game.
Their older brother, is it Exodus?
Yeah.
Okay. I've ran him coaching a few times and I've played against him on Sundays.
Blazing fast too, man.
Brutal.
Blazing
I
fast.
do not like playing against him.
Yeah. So Refuge honestly changed my whole philosophy towards soccer. It's like, what do you do with that, man? Like, nobody wants to get in the way of that.
So can I jump in here really quick and
Yeah.
we'll get back. So I just love how, I don't know if it's the idea or whatnot, but people have their own style, whether the players can play this style or not. Just, hey, I'm going to coach this or this formation or these tactics, they're going to be this way, and don't adapt to the players they have. So it sounds like this is a perfect little segue where you've got a group of players that play a certain way, not the way you want to do it. Just talk about how that dynamic kind of changes your coaching style for a year, 2 years, or
Probably
whatnot.
for however many years.
Yeah.
I mean, because you had to, like you said, you grew up playing the same exact way we played. I mean, for all intents and purposes, like get it wide, be direct. And now you've got players that don't want to do that.
And are really good technically.
Yeah, probably
and
better
whatnot,
technically than you were when you were in high school.
And better than I am technically now or at any point. You always have a few of those guys, and that's true. Man, it's weird. One thing I do tend to point out to them, like I don't think a fully possession-oriented attack, I just don't think it works. If you examine the world stage, when has it worked? Under Pep at Barcelona.
In 2014.
And Spain. I beyond those two teams, I don't know really what you're talking about. Like Man City's just horrible to watch now, And
the reason they've never won Champions League.
yeah. And then you look at Liverpool and you look at the way that Madrid played with Ronaldo, just absolutely dominant with win the ball, connect 2-3 times through the middle, and you're on them. Mathematically, that just makes more sense to me, and it seems to work better in general and overall. But I do think that the most perfect version of the game is a mixture, and that's probably what Brazil plays, right? Is a mixture of incredibly beautiful but also hyper aggressive. So that would be, if I had the ingredients for it, I would coach it. I'd say, hey, go play like Brazil.
Yeah, like Germany. What year was that? With Germany played a lot like that. Moved the ball really well, but it was like just decisive and destructive.
When it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Decisive, destructive.
We talk a lot about this, don't we, Ben, on the pod? That just with coaches about how you play, and everybody likes to build out of the back and connect 45 passes before they advance up to the final third and whatnot.
And they like to say that is the way they play. And we like to see people that can vary it up, or that at least we're willing to approach it different ways.
Yeah, and you have to adapt to the players you have.
Yeah, so that would be my final point, is as much as I like to talk about these philosophies and everything, generally at a school like Lincoln or the other schools in DMPS, I would say even with our best teams, it's rare that we have the depth to really implement something that we know is, if we bring guys off the bench, if we have an injury, that like this is going to be sustained. It almost always is figure it out. and even that I'm not ashamed of that at all. It's worked as well as it's worked, but and we can get into this. You know, I will say that in general, it's very hard within a DMPS program or a program comparable to ours to implement much of anything that's terribly detailed, because very hard to get everybody in one place at one time. It just is. And you feel that within our schools. You feel it at practices. You feel, gee, if we only had 6 more guys here, we could do something awesome. And we certainly have those 6 on our roster, right. But you also know that 5 of those 6 are gone for a real reason.
Yeah. Or it's like you want to train set pieces, or you want to train like just like things that are, as a coach or a player, you're like, oh, these are important things, but I mean, you can't have all the pieces there. Yeah. So then you get to Saturday or Sunday, or whenever your game is Tuesday, yeah. And you make that one change, now all of a sudden everything you've talked about doesn't even matter.
Yeah. So it just changes the way you think, and I tend to just try to be glad to be there. I'm glad that whoever's out there is there. But yeah, it's kind of like being a teacher where I don't do this anymore. I've been teaching so long, where you have some idea of how the class is going to go, then it starts and you just throw the ideas like whatever. I just don't even do that anymore as a teacher.
What do you do now?
I've learned, I just don't have any set expectations whatsoever. I take the kids as they are and make the most of it.
And so, and we're talking because, some of these kids, because that's what they are. They've got jobs,
yeah,
like real jobs, because they've got parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles they're trying to help with and whatnot. So, there's real life
with our
challenges.
Mini pitch initiative. One thing that we've learned through talking to DMPS is that almost 80% of DMPS students are on reduced or free lunch, which just is mind-boggling to me. And so, you talk about just like all the challenges, we were talking about nutrition being a big part of soccer now, whereas, 20 years ago, it wasn't a thought. Let me just talk about the program, talk about the challenges, because then we want to go to talk about all the good stuff. But, talk about the tough stuff for a minute.
Yeah, because I really don't know if people know the challenges. Some people think, oh, yeah, that's tough. That like Lincoln maybe doesn't have a great training ground, or but they play their games at county, but they don't think about how the kids get to county. There's so many things.
We're friends with Lisa Grief over, and she's the girls coach over at North High, and we've done a couple sessions with her and helped them a little bit. And there were girls literally like sprinting to like go change and then like get on the bus so they could go to work before they went home to do their homework. And this is at 6:30 at night after training.
And those are the ones that showed up.
And then it's like the captain of the team. It's like the best player. But
yeah.
So anyway, just talk about that. And obviously you've got a lot of amazing kids. So
yeah, no, and I'm I want to be not careful talking about that, but I want to be sensitive. Don't want to pretend to know how any kid's living. But I've been teaching in very similar schools. School I came from in Colorado is very similar to Lincoln, demographically, economically. Been doing this all for 10, 12 years now, so I feel I can comment. I'd say our greatest challenges are the million little things that can throw you off. So the things that you count on, to begin with your examples first. Okay, we practice at Soccer South, 2 miles west of the school. We play our games at county, 2 miles east of the school. Just getting the boys there each day, ton of illegal behavior tends to occur. People just piling kids into their cars, kids without licenses driving. And I don't mind saying any, especially at this point. I don't mind saying any of this because this is what we do to get through a day.
I couldn't believe how many kids would drive illegally to my training sessions at 15. I was like, wait, what?
How else are they going to get there?
And as a coach, what are you supposed to do? Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's like their lifeline. Just come play.
And that's real. And I would also add that, like, I think that Lincoln is, you know, I would say that there's other schools in our district that face greater challenges than us even, but ours are for sure significant. So begin with the logistical, but those things begin to eat at you. You know, if you start to lose a kid in trout, you know, just little things like that, where there are far more variables in a program like Lincoln, like East, like North, like Hoover, and like Roosevelt. The number of variables has to be at least tripled, where the considerations of a coach on a daily basis or a player are just far more, like just getting the kids' bodies there, getting them fed, as you mentioned, you know, pre-game meals. I was talking to you guys a little bit about that before we started talking. These things that are a given at, it would seem, at suburban style programs these days, we tend to, I've been really aggressive about just getting food for our teams, which is not to say that all of our boys are starving. I don't feel that they are. And what I would say about all but a couple of our players, I guess, is they all come from really solid families. More so by far than my general student population, which my students overall tend to come from very splintered backgrounds. But my players, at least, it's a lot, tend to be totally loved and supported at home. A lot of this is just a matter of money, just straight up. So they're going to eat whatever, you know, like you'd imagine. They're just kids. They would eat flaming hot Cheetos before a game. They would drink a brisk before a game, right? And their parents, it's not that they don't care. It's so far from that, but they're not, like, that's such a minor concern if you're dealing with a lot of real life stuff, that that's one thing we've tried to solve for the boys. And we get a ton of community support with that. Also, FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, just feeds us 2-3 times a season. Just help coming from all over. But again, like, what are we talking about here? Transportation and food. We've not begun to talk about soccer. We're not even close to talking about soccer.
Not even academics either.
No, so we can talk academics.
Well, you should talk about the positive part about the academics.
What about them?
Didn't you guys make some improvements?
Early stage.
Oh, is it
right?
right after that?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to the whole thing. Let me lay out the challenges first, and then we'll talk about last year.
Set the table.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Attendance is a huge issue. I'm actually shocked when I hear that people don't know that attendance is a huge issue. I think it's an issue nationwide. And across demographics, it's just far more dramatic within lower income demographics. But we are in the midst of a bona fide attendance crisis, even before COVID, really a serious issue. And so, and there's a million factors going to that. I will not pretend to know why a kid would or would not come to school, but I think it's fair to say that it goes back to our previous comments about just general instability, or if you have more variables in your life, then it's hard to say that only school, soccer, and church, or whatever it is, matter when you got many, many things to be worrying about. And that's generally the idea for our soccer players that have issues with attendance. Some of them are just making bad decisions, like anybody.
15, 16, 17-year-old
Absolutely.
kids do it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what school they're going to.
No, it doesn't. But when those decisions start to happen at a school like Lincoln, I would say that there is a greater probability that they're going to fall into something, like meet somebody else who's in a similar situation, and goes in a certain direction, just based on probabilities. It's a definite issue, and it hurts. And we always lose guys for the playoffs because Lincoln has its own attendance policy, and it's brutal. So attendance is also an issue. What else?
Attendance, academics, transportation.
Yeah,
nutrition.
and then what I would
Which, I
say.
mean, I say grades. Sorry to interrupt you, Jack, but grades fall right into that. If they're not going to school, you're not getting
Right.
good grades. Again, that's, I think, across the whole student body. And that's where graduation rates come into play and all that.
And that affects your eligibility too. So those are the reasons you're losing players.
Yeah, and all those things snowball. So the last thing I would comment on is just general issues at home, which are real and affect everybody, but probably inordinately affect our players for various reasons, but definitely affect my students more than my players. I would stand by that. But
would you add in the era of social media, internet, constant screens? Would you add that to the equation too, as kind of like a negative thing?
Well, I don't feel that phones have helped any human. that I'm pretty firm on that. I guess I would say social media. I really feel that social media, and I'm not like crazy, like, oh, it's the devil, like old man about it. For various reasons, I'm really opposed to social media. I have become a teacher as social media arose, as smartphones entered our world. So I've watched like that. Kids just change.
And the standard then of, we were talking about this recently, of like, like fresh kicks, fresh haircut, a new phone or whatever, like that just becomes like the standard. And it's all, not all, but it's a lot of time driven by just like, well, it's what I saw on my phone, man. Like, gotta have that fresh fade.
I just think that social media makes people that are all in on it, and kids aren't super aware, or if they're aware at all, my impression is it makes kids less secure in who they are, and you want to raise secure people.
Great. But then when are you like most insecure, even when there wasn't social media, is when you're junior high and high school, right?
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and amplify.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And give everybody a platform
Yeah.
and to feel, yeah, of course.
But then the other side of that is that it stimulates egotism also, which we've dealt with a little bit. And we definitely dealt with I'd say this about them to their face. My 2019 team, which is by far my most talented team, multiple D1 players, stacked roster, stud transfer or exchange student from Switzerland, all these things. And ego probably sank us.
I mean, you couldn't have set it up better there, can you, for a segue?
Yeah, so talk about how things have gone since 2019 to now.
Sure.
I mean, not necessarily how they've gone, because we know we're in a pandemic, so.
Yeah.
So just to give everybody a recap, just give us a quick little rundown. Because we went to that Lincoln Roosevelt 2019 game. Was that the shootout?
We did go to a shootout with Roosevelt in 2019.
On the stadium field at County.
But we also had one in 2018.
I was going to say
2018 was the
this is where the years are getting old. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you're going back to 2018.
Okay, sorry. So anyways, table's yours, Jack. Figure out where you want to go with that.
Well, where I wanted to take it, because like I really do want to talk about last year's team and those guys, but you can't talk about that without, I pulled all those boys in to a team meeting, and oh God, man, it makes me sad to think about. Like January of 2020.
So 11 months ago.
Yeah, I pulled them into a team meeting, and we talked about all that our program has accomplished, but we talked about how, at least for me and for our key players that had been through it on that team, we talked about how embarrassed we were and how real that was, because our loss to Ankeny in that sub-state final in 2019
That's the game.
was it was embarrassing for multiple reasons. And you know, I'm a coach. I have to take the blame for that. I absolutely do. For the specifics don't really matter, and they're not crazy specifics. It's just that was not a focused team. It was a team whose personalities never gelled with each other. It was a team that didn't practice hard, which you talk about red flags, right? It's like, well, we can't expect anything if we don't practice hard. And so we were very embarrassed because that was a huge crowd, which is whatever, but it's a big deal on the south side, man, to get a huge crowd like that on graduation day would have meant a ton if we were able even to just comport ourselves the way that I know we're capable of. We don't really care about the win. We did not play the way that those boys were capable of playing or act the way that those boys were capable of acting.
I don't remember the final score, but I remember it was disappointing. I mean, it was like
4-1 final. It was 2-1 with 5 minutes left, which
Yeah.
was not accurate. They could have been up.
it was 2-0 and right for a while.
Yeah, it was 2-0 for most of it.
You guys scored one though, and then it was like, all right, because you guys that was the big game of the whatever you call it, the bracket.
Sub-state bracket.
Yeah, that was the big. That's why I think we made it our
That was
game of the week.
Yeah.
Shameless
That was
plug.
that was when we had old Charlie Pritchard in the corner chirping at us. Remember? When he hit that corner, that was hilarious.
He's sick, man. I give it
Good
up
player.
to him as
Good
a player. He's the type of direct player we're talking about. He's like knows what he wants and goes and gets it.
Yep.
So I gave him a lot of credit for that. And I don't blame our team for, they're just kids. And there were so many complicated personalities we were trying to bring together in one season. It probably was never going to happen, but it was embarrassing the way that it went down. We were also not embarrassed, but felt that we had misrepresented ourselves the year before that too. We lost to Ankeny Centennial on a shootout after anyone who was there, and all respect to them, we should have won that game 6-7-0. Just put it on them and could not score. So in 2 years, that's what we were known for, and we'd had a really bad loss to Dowling the year before that. That was shocking. And what I will tell you is that behind each of these embarrassing stories, there's stories I can't even tell you. There's stuff I can't tell you about what these boys were going through in their lives and things that were affecting our team behind the scenes that I wouldn't blame them for what happened, but it comes back to what we're talking about. When your line is so fine that losing in a PK shootout is the difference between going to state or not, that's when you go back and you think, what little things can I help these kids clean up so that they get to feel a great day, like going to state.
Do you think, though, those experiences and those kids from the 18 and 19 team had an impact on the 20 group, 2020 group, as far as what you guys, the expectations were really high, and those kids on the 18s and 19s, especially the upperclassmen, had an impact on the younger ones to kind of lead them towards the reason why you guys were so optimistic last year?
Without a doubt. An experience like what we went through with Ankeny lays you bare. It's like, and I love that about sports. I love how vulnerable sports can make you. It's like, well, here I am. This is us, for better or worse. This was our team. So now you guys know. Now the whole state knows. And I said that to our boys. This is who we are, and this is what we have to fix. And I really felt that our 2020 team took that message, didn't even experience it as words. They just already felt all that. And I felt it was going to be a really special season, 2020.
Okay, so you guys have this meeting in January. Everybody's, hey, this sucks, but we've grown from it, right? The guys that are gone now hopefully have impacted the guys that are now the upperclassmen and kind of the better players. So, what do you guys do all winter of 2020? January. So you have the meeting January, February. I mean, literally up until I'm trying. I mean, it's literally. It was within a week of first practice starting that everything got canceled, right?
Practice was going to start Monday, whatever that was, and everything got canceled. Either the Thursday or the Friday prior. So yeah, man.
I mean, within days.
So here's what's so crazy. It's not just that it got canceled. Other sports are losing seasons, but for all the soccer teams or any spring sport, but especially because the soccer schedule aligned directly. Dude, I have not seen most of these kids. So since I said goodbye to them, like I'll see you Monday. I've seen like 4 or 5 of them. These are boys I really love, but my wife was pregnant for most of COVID, and now we have a newborn, and so I have taken what have felt like the necessary precautions, and all I wanted to do is have them all in my backyard, or have them out playing soccer in my street in front of my house, and so we're expecting to get started at Norwalk on Monday. So that's one of the things we do with our lack of facilities is I'll ask anybody if we can use their field. So Norwalk's been super nice to us over the years. Let us do our whole preseason there. So we're ready to go. And it just never happened.
So who are some of these? Let's talk about some of these guys that were.
Who are your holdovers from the 19 team to
the 20 that are going to kind of. Because I mean that's a big deal, right? I mean, you guys. I mean, you talk about those boys. I mean, again, they're 17, 18, right? That's how seniors are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of so some guys are going to maybe play in college. I don't know. I have no idea, who your seniors are, but a lot of them, they just missed out on their entire season of, the last season of competitive soccer, which we all know in our own ways. No matter when your last season is, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and like you said, you didn't see. I mean, you don't see. I couldn't imagine. You don't see your buddies unless you're. Because I remember back in spring break, mid-March, I mean, you're not supposed to be doing, nobody really knew the effects of it, but you weren't supposed to be doing anything. Every school was closed down.
That's when it was scary.
Yeah.
That's when it was like, stay inside.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk about some of the boys and who they are and whatnot.
So this will bring me to, why I'm here, in my opinion, and why, I contacted Matt. I wanted to be here. I wanted to talk to you guys about these specific boys. And I also, of course, want to talk about the ways that Kick It Forward or how ready Kick It Forward was to help us and how much they had already helped us through the off season working with this specific group. But I'll speak about them in general first and then draw your attention to a couple specifics. But I'll tell you that this is my favorite group of boys, these seniors that I didn't get to coach last year, that were the class of 2020. Favorite group that's come through on balance. And the biggest reason for that is these are just fun boys. Not the most academically focused bunch. This is about 20 kids. That's another reason I'm here is we're in a rebuild now. And so I'm reflecting back on these teams that we've had. Really just a couple out of these 20 is terribly motivated academically. But I would also say really only 1 or 2 of them was a bum academically also. These are just kids, man, pure kids. And that was going to be our vibe throughout the team going into the season. So I told you in 2019, there's a lot of ego. There's a lot of personality clashes. There's a lot of neurotic behavior, just a weird team. And I felt all that gone just being around my 2020 boys. One of the magical things, I've talked to Matt, I've talked to Joe about this. One of the magical things about coaching high school and just high school soccer, high school sports in general, is you get players' brothers come through. So I had, and I can start with those 2 because those are my captains. Both had older brothers. So you may have coached Fernando Almada Vargas.
I know Fernando.
Or you at least would have seen him.
Yep.
And I heard he lit it up at a couple Sporting Iowa sessions. Incredible player. And his little brother Eric is my captain, and we call him Big Poppy. Big old center back. It was actually our MVP of our 2019 season, which, you know, we had the Gatorade Player of the Year on that team, and that was Roderick. And God, I love Roderick. Like, he's the greatest player in the history of Lincoln, and he and Joseph honor like that.
We'll give it to Roderick.
So I felt especially bad for Rod having to be on that, or having to deal with that 2019 season. But Eric was the one guy in that year who just stood up and just did his job, and really just seemed to want it more than anybody in an incredibly mature way.
Big Poppy.
That's part of why we call him Big Poppy.
I like that.
Love this kid, and he's had immense struggles that, you know, I won't necessarily speak to the specifics of those, but I do know that he continues to fight on, and he's an incredibly strong kid. I love his brother to death. And Eric, going in, you know, knowing that he was that way all the way through 2019 and was going to be a senior now, he could have graduated in 2019. His life circumstances are such that it was important for him to get school done so he could go to work. And he was willing to delay that just to play for us. He just wanted to be the captain, like the actual captain. And I love that. And that made me want it that much more for him.
Was he? So he played center back, and a big, strong boy, was super technical. Because I think I remember we were watching. He was doing like Croix. Yeah, he was doing Croix in his defensive his own 18.
You
and
guys were at that Valley game where he was wild that game. He got into the attack. He should have scored in that game.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant because, like I said, big, strong center back, but he was super technical, doing little tricks inside his own 18. I was like, oh, I love it.
And
I'm sure. I don't know if you did it at the time, Jack. But.
It's very reminiscent of the young Blake Sievers.
Absolutely.
Well, he's a guy that I would give that freedom to because he did it with confidence. And that's Eric. Very confident. And I just miss, you know, one of the things I love about being a teacher, especially now, is, you know, and I always think about the differences between being a club coach and a high school coach, having done both. And you know what's sweet, guys? Neither of you will probably ever be a high school teacher, but if you are, so sweet just having your players stop by your room. It's an amazing thing. So as they're seniors and they have open periods and stuff, and they can just come hang out, and they choose your room, so you get some of your.
Pretty cool.
It's really wonderful, and it's like a place where everything's positive because they know I got to do my job over here, teach these kids and stuff. So they're not going to ruin everything by being terrible in the corner. So I'm off working with other kids, some junior English students, whatever. And I look up and there's just 5 soccer players who snuck into my room. They're writing up prospective formations on the board. You know, these are the things that you would, that I would tell any prospective high school coach. That's where it's at, man. You get out on game nights, whatever, anything could happen. Often the worst is brought out of people in games and stuff like that, you know, but those, knowing that you just have this like home base for the boys to stop by, and these boys in particular were incredibly welcome in my room and knew that and were there very often. And Eric had a super limited schedule. He didn't need a lot of school, so he'd just come hang out in my room after he got his work done. More sad for him to have lost this season than anybody by far, and he really deserved it. His co-captain is a kid named Jared Dominguez, who had played for Sporting back in the day. Great little defender. His brother had also played for me. We'd had that connection for years and years. And Jared, I love completely also. And he was, I can kind of talk about him while talking about some others. He was one of that group who was like waking up to who he could be and what it was to work hard and how that meaningful that could be. So between Jared and Eric, I felt that those two it was going to be hard for us to fail. And we still may have failed, but it would have felt different. It would have, I would have known that we put it out there, just having those two guys lead us. And I would add, just because I know he'll hear this, Jared's a very bright kid who I would say has not fully acknowledged that about himself. And this is something you run into in general at a school like Lincoln is under different circumstances, a kid like Jared, if you just plug him in at Johnston or Valley, he's absolutely going to college. Just absolutely. He's a good enough player and a damn good writer, a good student, a really funny ass kid, great kid. But he's not in a collegiate program right now, and that was his choice. He really had that option. But I'm putting Jared on notice right here. It's not too late, and he's a very bright kid who is beginning to figure out what he wants in life, and that was thrilling. I knew that going into the season, and I was ready to enjoy watching these boys.
I was gonna say it's not too late.
No.
Absolutely. I mean, it's especially given the circumstances. There's all sorts of schools that are going different. I mean, adapting to the scenarios that kids are up to now.
And I also just want Jared to live his best life. Like that's how much I think of this dude. But I'll keep you here all night if I talk that much about individuals. I feel that way about all these kids. That it's easy for most of these boys to have been on the outside, whatever that means, looking in and say, well, these are at best just a bunch of goofy ass kids. At worst, there might be some real issues here. But I never felt that way about any of these kids. I so loved like the energy that they had created and were creating with their open gyms, with their honest conversations in team meetings, having been through everything they'd already been through. These were just my favorite group. And I can go kid by kid. So I can tell you just quickly, Alexis Argueta, one of the most explosive, incredible attacking players that most people will have never seen. And I hope he does.
He played with on varsity for. We saw him play, right? He was he a wide player a year or two ago?
He played against Valley. He typically would only be around for our last 7 games or whatever. He was unbelievable though. He's unstoppable. I thought that kid was. Yeah.
I ran across from my coach at the Menace.
He's another kid who. It's not a sob story. He wouldn't want it to be a sob story. He's a smart kid too. He's a kid who, if you could change a couple variables in his life, oh my God, coaches would have been salivating over here. Extraordinary player. The big one was the addition of Brian Koss coming back to us. So Brian Koss, you guys know Brian?
I've heard this story, but I don't know him.
Yeah, incredible player. But he had gone to Dowling after his freshman year at Lincoln. And God, that broke my heart because his sophomore year was when we should have been. Well, that's when we should have gone to state. And if we had him, I'm fairly certain we would have. But he had come back to Lincoln for his senior year, essentially just to play soccer for us, right? And he would have been our best player. Brian Koss, one of the best players in the state over the last few years. And a lot of people don't know about that. Incredible forward, just incredibly crafty, knows exactly what he wants and how to get it. So we were so stoked when he came back, and it was whatever. He's playing at a JUCO in KC, though. Brian's too good to not keep playing. That was our best player.
At Johnson County?
Yeah. He's fantastic.
Pell's brother.
I said that came across.
Yeah, Shemmy County's over there too.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, they would have gone down there together, I'm sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keep going though, Jack.
No, absolutely. The other 2 seniors I really want to mention are Juan Sandoval and Yazi Zaragoza.
Bracket Ben got a big smile for those that are not watching on YouTube.
I know everybody loves Juan.
Yeah, Juanito.
So Juan's in the National Guard now. been sending us great pictures. And there's a whole bunch of these guys that I'll mention that are in the National Guard. Super proud of them. So Christian Montesinos, who else is? Preston tried to go in the Guard. I'll tell you about that. Jose Aguirre. I think those are the three that are off the Guard. But yeah, Juan is serving his country and then is going to go to Iowa State, I believe.
That's a super cool program that he got into, right? Like, basically he joins the Guard and then they pay for him to go to school, and
Cool.
he made the decision that was the smartest thing for him. It'll be a bummer not to see him play somewhere, but I bet you he'll be on that club team at Iowa State.
Yeah, and I can tell you, so first of all, the Guard has been so helpful to us. I go looking for help anywhere I can get it and explore options, and they've been massively helpful to us. We were going to have our preseason welcome aboard overnight there out at Camp Dodge, and they've just helped us with a ton of stuff logistically over the past couple of years. But that, no doubt, I think that relationship has led to several of our boys going that path, and it's setting themselves up for a really solid future. And Juan, anybody that knows him, you can't help but smile in his presence. I would say, Juan, that usually I get mad at a kid for being that happy. Like you said, like I got to switch. Like when I'm in anything
we've seen you
competitive, I'm a lunatic. I'm a lunatic. I admit that. But Juan's just always smiling. It's like, God, I should be mad at you, dude.
Yeah.
But I've come to realize that is just a special kid. He just is. It's like I don't want to do anything to change Juan. It's like what I guess I would say. Love him so much.
Perspective, right? Does he? I mean, in the big scheme of things, if he's smiling and happy, like,
and he cares about all the right things, and he treats people right. Not just because that's what you're supposed to do, too. Like he really cares about people. Hilarious. A million stories about Juan. He, I don't know his car accident story well enough to tell it, but that was a good one. Anyway.
Yeah, let's keep that off. Let's keep that.
Oh no, I can only imagine. I'm sure it's G.
Okay, so I actually want to talk about Yazi in a minute because it's going to transition me into talking a little bit about kicking forward. But there's just a whole bunch of these boys that I just want to mention them, and then I'll talk about them all together. But all these other kids, so Jose Aguirre, Pancho Davila, Asali Agos, Yogesh Urang, Manny, Christian, Preston, Adrian, Bluso, Kylan Spence was probably going to play, Alex Gushin, and Aaron Lee. These are all kids that were supposed to be a part of our program, and all of them were part of that wonderful energy that we felt we had created as a team, where I only mention these guys, like I mention them because I love them primarily, and I want them to know that through this, but also because it was like I felt like down to like the 30th guy on my team last year or in 2020, they were all going to care deeply about each other and support each other. I felt like we were going to have one of those benches, where you can look at some bench and be like, oh my God, like look at the energy that bench is pouring out onto the field. Whereas I guarantee you go look at my 2019 benches.
Well, that's not a common, I mean, we've all played it.
Yeah.
It's not common when the bench players are as supportive and as energetic and as in it for all the right reasons. Because, I mean, a lot of bench players are swearing the guy that's playing in front of them and the coach, like, oh, that guy, I'm better than that guy.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge, that's a massive, whatever you've done there to get them to mentally be engaged and realize that. I mean, to me, it's a big, testament to you.
To all of us, to the whole program. I don't know. Who knows how the season may have turned out, but it felt like it almost felt logical that our program was in that place to finally pull it all together. And who knows really whether that would have happened. But I do want to, I'll tell you this anecdote to tell you what made me, I guess, so sure of that. And this would have been 2019 in the fall, one of our players, a JV player, who all the boys loved, and he would have had a shot to play varsity in 2020 also. But in that fall, I believe his younger brother was killed on Southwest 9th Street. He was hit by a car. Southwest 9th is a super dangerous street. This was a middle school kid. And his passing really rocked a lot of our players because they knew his brother so well, and they knew this kid. Yaziel Zaragoza, one of my favorite players ever, and was a senior, little midfielder, who honestly up till March 11th, March 13th, whatever it was, he still wasn't sure he was going to play. He was going to play. And the reason he wasn't going to play was, these are reasons too big to discuss, I believe. I can't comment on them. But I just felt in my heart he was going to play because we had so much heart on the team. And he was as important to that as possible. Yazi came to me after this kid was killed. He said, we got to do something. And I didn't know what to do. And so we just started selling chocolate. You get these boxes of chocolate that you drive down to Norwalk and go to a warehouse, and they load you up and you sell them for $1. And I just started giving entire cases of chocolates to kids I didn't even know. And Yazi ran this whole thing. It would not have happened without Yazi, to be clear, Yazi and his sister. Yazi would go tell kids, just go get a box, sell them, give us the money. Kids I didn't even know, I'm handing them essentially like $60, right? They could go sell this, $60, it's all yours. Kids I didn't even know, I never wrote their names down, would take these boxes and very often come back with more than $60. They did this over and over and over again, and we raised, I don't know, we raised at least like $6,000 to help pay for the funeral, which I don't even know how far that went. I wish it could have been more, but I'd never experienced anything like that. I'd never seen kids get that active in just trying to change something. That happened way at the start of the school year. And that was when I really had such a strong sense about this team that, like I said at the start, even if we didn't make state or whatever, I wasn't going to feel sick about this team. I wasn't going to be disappointed. I was sure as hell was not going to be embarrassed by this group. That's who they were. And if I had time, I'd go through all the boys whose names I raced through. But for now, I would just say that like each of those boys represented that heart, and like there was no front to them. There's nothing to any of these boys that was sort of protecting. They didn't want to protect themselves. They just wanted to be part of the team and really see what happened. And that's what made me, for every reason, I'm sad to have lost the season. But man, talk about a team that deserved it, boys that deserved to be with each other in a program that seemed to be on the brink of making a breakthrough, which I want to be clear, it's like us making state of itself doesn't mean anything, but
it's just like one more win.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to plant that flag. Like I want to do that for our program and for all the boys who come through this program, for Jaime and for Joe and anybody who's seen where it was, but especially for people who know that we got to work a little harder. We just do. We got to work a little harder in DMPS schools and schools like us. Marshalltown, really proud of Marshalltown for what they accomplished in 2019.
They were a good little program.
Oh my God, they were really.
They are a good little program, but that year they had a good little squad.
They were scary.
I just think though that talks a lot about. You can talk. You should talk at the highest level. Today they play Champions League, right? And some of the best teams that are quote on paper didn't get the result they wanted. but there's so much more than actually tactics on the field when you build a team. And I mean, to me, that's what soccer does for kids and families and people in general.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between that club and high school. That dynamic that changes is there's just this little different level of buy-in to the high school thing. I don't know that I understood it when I was that age. But my college experience,
because there's so much off the field.
At that age, I don't know that I would have been able to
At
verbalize
club soccer, though, you don't have much off the field.
Sure. I'm saying I don't know that I would have been able to verbalize that age because I was 17 and I was dumber than I am now. And then in college, it was because I had a good experience. It was crystallized like kind of
Sure.
That was actually pretty great.
Yeah, man, and the idea of playing for your community is priceless. The idea that boys who grew up going to the same elementary schools are now out on a pretty awesome stage together. Those things, high school sports, definitely inefficient. Definitely inefficient, but who cares, right? Who cares about efficiency? And so, I'm probably not completely done talking about these boys, but I do want to talk about Kick It Forward and then, talk about those things together to try to wrap this up ultimately. But I'm having a good time.
Make this a two-parter.
Yeah.
Well, I just think so. I'll jump in really quick, Jack, to hopefully I can segue there. So, I mean, we helped, I think, and hopefully provide some resources and whatnot over the winter with this group, and not necessarily just because it was this group, but we've kind of built a good relationship, I think, over the last few years. And
that probably also stems from our boy Joe Thonrath.
Absolutely. Lincoln grad, second best player in Railsplitter history.
Also Drake Lum, and basically why, Blake and Matt and, field Titan tactician, and Joe, what do we call Joe? Southside schemer?
Southside schemer, yeah.
But yeah, Joe, I mean, if Joe hadn't gone to Lincoln, I don't know that we'd have the relationship with you guys, and that's not negative. That's just more testament to Joe and his passion for the Rails, and obviously want to support you guys.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, so I know this was the segue I was looking for.
Good job, Blake.
It took a little while, but I finally kind of got there. Not fully though.
Well, where I wanted to start with you guys, actually, you two, to thank the both of you. So we talk about the inefficiency of high school sports, right? You're not doing it because it's efficient. You're not contributing to it because it's efficient, because you put X into it, you're for sure going to get Y. That's just not how kids work, period. It's definitely not how public schools work, and it's not how high school sports
Public anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you guys started covering games, you start in this podcast and all that Matt has done, I was like, what are they doing? This is not efficient. Which I just love. But there's no direct.
That makes two of us. Jack.
Like you cannot say directly that for you guys to come watch us play North for your, whatever. A given
Derby match.
The Derby with North to open the season. Nah, there's no way you could logically just argue that this will directly lead to all the changes that I know that Kick It Forward really cares about, that the real changes that Kick It Forward wants to see. And I love that about Kick It Forward. And I saw it pretty quickly, I think. I was like, man, this is perfect. This is perfect. Don't just go start telling people how great high school sports is. Just start covering it and let them figure it out. And don't get up on soapboxes telling people these kids have it so much better than these kids and here's why. Just get in there and work with the kids and start to actually understand the situation. And that is my general impression of Kick It Forward. Many pitches are similar, right? We're not going to see because for whatever, 10, 20 years, federation types have been talking about, well, you got to address the grassroots level, right? Well, when you're talking grassroots, you're not looking at seeing the results for 10, 20 years or something. So I love that, there's no direct reason to build these mini pitches except give kids fun. If nothing beyond that ever happens, if we don't start producing maestros, number 10s, left and right, who cares?
That's that development for development's sake, though.
Yes.
We're not. That's not the point. It's just they'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the number of kids that come to our free clinics that have never played soccer, it's awesome. Like, they're not going to, and that's okay.
I love when kids show up in the cleats on the cement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm just here to play.
Yeah, like that's perfect. We'll figure out a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
So I wanted to formally take this chance to thank Matt above all. Joe, you guys said it. Just don't think the connection probably would have formed over time, but probably wouldn't have happened as quickly. And definitely you guys and anybody that helps Kick It Forward at all, because it's just kind of what I believe in, to put it as frankly as possible. Like, I just don't believe in, especially with kids, I don't believe in just trying to fix problems for them, because another one will just pop up. These are the sorts of things that I think start to make systemic change, which is the real thing that at the district level of any school system, they're really talking about how do we change these systems to benefit way more people. And I really firmly think that Kick It Forward is 5 years ahead on doing that.
We hope so, but it's not going to happen overnight, right? At the district level, and there's bigger problems out there, and you just hope over time, little by little, ultimately kids and our youth just improve and become better people, and just give them more opportunities than they normally would get.
Yeah, and this should be the goal with all kids, regardless of background. So what, you got a little boy, little girl?
Are we wrapping this up now, or?
No.
I do. Yeah. So I got a
let's
6.
Talk about you.
Yeah, let's talk
I got
about you too.
a 6 and a 4-year-old.
Okay.
And we talked a little bit about the virtual school now, right? We're privileged enough to be able to deal with it. My wife works out of her house now. I'm able to get home during the days, and be at first grade and pre-K, basically.
So I got a kindergartner and then a 3-month-old, but I only mention it because I do know that, or I do feel that my perspective on everything we're talking about is deepened just as you start to watch a kid develop day by day, and you, especially within COVID, it's drawn into such sharp relief that just how important it is for me to just give my daughter a little joy. It's usually free. It's usually outside. And soccer obviously can do that. And to tie it back to our big point, it is my impression, and I love this, the slogan now, what is it? A positive disruptor. That's wonderful, man. That's the philosophy of that is just perfect. Kick It Forward is not trying to save the world, and if it is, it's being real quiet about it, because this organization, in my impression, seems to understand that to change the world, you can't try to change the world. You try to give, in particular, as many young people positive experiences as possible. And soccer's a great way to do that. Soccer's probably the best way to do that in DMPS schools because of our demographics.
So you're a writer, right?
I love to write.
Does that make you a bit of an artist?
Sure.
So I just think that to me, I think that's a little bit about the sort of the stuff that we're doing, the nonprofit stuff, the stuff that we're doing for these these kids, we're just doing the stuff just to create something.
Well, it's a unifier.
Yeah,
right?
but you just do it. You don't know
Attract them.
You're going to go write something. You just have to write. You're not supposed to go write the best thing in the world every time you write. Just go keep writing. So like, we're just going to keep trying to do a little something, and then hopefully something will turn up. Yeah. And like the mini pitch, I think is a great example of that.
Absolutely.
We got lucky on that one.
Well, yeah, but even if you giving kids an opportunity, so instead of on a Friday night they go and do who knows what up to silliness, maybe they go play for an hour, and that gives them
some silliness.
But that gives them that's an hour that they didn't do anything they shouldn't have been doing, and you hope over time it just builds and builds and builds. And
yeah, and that's, to talk a little more specifically about like things we were doing with Matt and with Kick It Forward in general in 2019, 2020. In particular, we were focused on attendance. So I've told you there's an attendance crisis for sure. It was awesome to get Matt and Joe in some actual meetings with some administrators, so they understood A, how real this problem is, but B, how it is not fixable, but there are remedies that can be made. And if you can work on the margins of kids' lives, you can start to see real change taking place. And I do think that it's like recreation, it's like moments of joy that actually do affect those margins inordinately, and give the hope would be, and it's probably most of our experiences, that some of those experiences feel more important than others and latch on to them, and they do. So I can tell you that, like me, when I was going through my struggles sophomore year, I got cut from my college soccer team my sophomore year because I just said let go completely, didn't care about anything. What brought me back to life was soccer, absolutely. And it could have been another sport, basketball played a part in that too. But I realized something's missing here. And I gotta try to find it again. And once I started playing again and started playing hoops again, it did not dawn on me immediately, oh my God, life's worth living, whatever. But bit by bit, as I commit to just, I'm just gonna play. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I know that when I was 17, that made me happy, and it might make me happy again. To actually go in on an organization with that like mentality, it's been really moving for me to watch. In part because I was embarrassed about our attendance numbers. It was a lot for me to just be like, yeah, man, look at this, Matt. Like, these kids, this is where we're at. But they just never flip. They're just like, what can we do? Let's try some stuff. And I had worked in the nonprofit world and working in public schools where the budget's never enough. To work with an organization where you felt like you didn't have to put up any front for them and be like, oh, we're doing all these great things and look how much they smile. I didn't do any of that. I let the boys be totally real, because that's how Matt was with them. That's how Joe was with them. And I guess one of the biggest things that Kick It Forward has nailed in my impression is it's never felt like some force was coming from outside to save us. We don't want to be saved. These kids don't need to be saved. They need a little bit of help. And we try to keep a global perspective too. Globally, for the most part, all my boys are doing really well compared to those who are truly struggling globally. So, I mean that. We don't want to be saved, but a little bit of help,
a little boost,
goes, I would say, a super long way potentially. And if I have like a final remark, it would be that, at least on this point, that life has sucked for the last 8-9 months. It really has. And it's not just because of COVID, There's been a lot going on. And there's been a lot of bitterness, a lot of outright anger, a lot of ugly behavior. And I do just wonder if, 5% of those people, whatever the hell that means, but,
Disgruntled.
anyone who's let themselves become angry, generally angry, or agree.
It's got to be more than 5%.
Oh, no. I'm saying if you took 5% of the angry people and they just devoted 5% of their energy just to helping kids, you would start to see actual changes. And it wouldn't be like, oh, you go outside the next day and everybody's just hugging and stuff. But the one thing that at 37, like I'm just all in on this philosophy. It's like when in doubt, just help some kids. It's fun. It's fun for you. It's fun for them. And it's like an experience that, I don't know, Blake, watching your kids, man.
Yeah, and they're the future.
Yeah.
I mean, you can we can help our grandparents or our parents. Like most of them, when you're 60 plus, you're set in your ways.
Yeah.
These kids, a lot of them, like, let's help them out and open their eyes.
And you can almost do it selfishly, was my final point. Like, I have a blast working with kids. I have a blast. This is clear that, like, I'm getting paid to do this. This is my job. But, man, what a job.
It's fun.
These relationships.
Well, I got one last one for you. Sure. Ben, do you have anything else? There's only one word. You can only respond, though, in one word. Okay.
Well, before you.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, here we go.
There's one thing I failed to mention. This is crazy. In my bio, I didn't mention that I met my wife at Lincoln High School, and she's also a teacher.
Oh, well, we talked about we talked about this off camera. You were ranting and raving about her, how great she is, best mother, best wife ever. So, like, we don't want to
mention where you met her.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't fit directly into the soccer narrative.
Did you say you played goalkeeper?
Well, I actually was wondering about, because I was like, hold on a minute. He came back. I was just.
So she was teaching there as well.
Yeah, she came a couple years after me, and she's a Spanish teacher at Lincoln. She's from Ames, and so she's like definitely really the reason that it's like, I'm gonna live here for a while.
But you stayed here.
I still want to move back to Colorado whenever, in my 50s or something.
Have you told her that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Breaking news.
Who doesn't want to go retire?
Yeah, but yeah, I met her and we just started a family. It's been incredible, and she's a great team mom. So I really wouldn't want to not mention Mandy, though, because she's sleeping like 90 minutes a night right now with the newborn, and she's just looking for a reason to hit me. So,
well, full disclosure, I remember we talked way back in the spring. We had our little high school podcast roundtable, and you were like, "Hey guys, I can't be."
We got a hard stop.
Yeah, like that's testament to you again. Like you've done well there.
No, thank you. No, I love being a dad. A dad is more than anything. It's calmed me down. It really has it. Yeah, I do want to just tell these boys how much I love them ultimately, and then you can ask your one-word question.
So how much do you love them?
I just miss them terribly. I do. I miss
it's the worst, isn't it?
As friends.
This is making me all emotional because I'm listening to you like talk about all your players, and I miss all my players so much.
Yeah, it's so real, and I'll tell you what, Ben. What is extraordinary about it? You feel it with students too, to an extent, but the magic does go away to an extent. It just does. Like once you're not their coach, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And they're not playing for you, or once you're not their teacher anymore. Like I'm getting so close to my students, but then very few of them are permitted to ever contact me beyond school whatsoever. And not because I don't want that, but it's just like there's some kind of magic goes away. And usually you are permitted to feel that magic as it happens, and then start to realize that in 2 weeks, in 3, whatever, it will be gone. So let's start to prepare ourselves for that. Let's really enjoy this, whatever we need to do. And we're denied that in 2020, which means that millions of people have been denied that. And we're not even we can't begin to make sense of it yet. But I know the sense I can make of it is that's my favorite group of boys ever. Love them to death. Would do anything for any of them. And yeah, one of the like tragedies of my life that they didn't get to play.
Well, we're feeling for you for sure, and you know, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't just like give a shout out to like all the high school seniors.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, yeah, you know, that's a tough deal. I think this is where we let Sievers drop.
Well,
his,
no, I was just saying, like
hammer.
there were many. I don't think a lot of people know. Maybe they do, but there were a lot of efforts made to do
some sort of farewell for a lot of different seniors in different ways, but there's just no good way to
all the
do
high
it.
schools. Yeah, I mean, there were many high school programs trying to figure out different solutions to do one last thing, and kept getting pushed back, and things got worse and worse. So
this is that. This straight up is that for me, because I you know, I was watching like the teams do little Twitter things for each player, stuff like that. And I just didn't have the energy for it. I was too sad at that time, honestly. It was whatever, May. I was properly depressed at that point. I'm too sad to sit there and just make little images, you know, whatever. And also probably just not my style. This is my style right here. And I'm thankful to you guys for, like, that's the reason I'm here is to say goodbye to those guys.
Yeah. Well, you've honored them well, I think.
Yeah, I tried.
I think so as well.
No,
So
seriously.
You can, yeah. I mean, what do they say? You can't describe. There's something like 1,000 words or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some kind of thing.
Blake's eloquence is very rarely matched.
You guys are the English boys, so I'm sure you'll correct me there. But no.
Well, so drop this. I think I know what the the question is, but I'm gonna let you ask it.
Oh yeah, you definitely don't know.
Okay.
The best soccer player you have ever played with is.
You're right. I definitely don't.
So like on my team.
Played with. So.
Played on the same field as.
Yeah, take it for.
I guess I would probably say I've just played with. There are just a couple MLS guys that
it's a one-word answer. Jack, remember?
Maybe two, like first name,
well,
last name.
First name. We'll know him by the first name. Yeah. Maybe or last name.
I mean, what if I said Jeff? Like, well, you would know, but that's not fair.
Okay, this will be a one-word response, but I do have to qualify it before I say the one word, because this is a dude who embodied. He and I have the same philosophy as players, and he's my best friend. And he lives in Detroit, and he's having a very rough time lately. But there's a kid who led the nation in scoring as a high school senior in Detroit. Just an absolute animal. But one of the most fun players to watch on breakaways, watch him truck people with his big thighs. And just an incredibly efficient player. So I don't have like a great answer for you as far as having played with some famous genius, but Zen.
Well, now you have to give us his
what's
last
his full name?
His name is Nick Zen.
Nick Zen. Nice.
And he'll hear this too. And he's one of the people I credit with keeping me in it when I wasn't in it. Got me back into the game when I was 19.
Gotta have those guys.
I love them to death. To death.
Well, shit. Got me all
Sorry,
emotional,
buddy.
Jack.
I always do this.
Yeah.
This is my effect.
I love it.
Now I'm gonna want to coach again. I thought I was out of it.
Man, think about the
It's
smell.
like roping, pull me back in.
I've been running into smells like smelling fields, just smelling grass.
Oh God, I smell my soccer shoes. And I'm like,
It's real, man.
What? No, they smell awful. All right, well, yeah, I don't think there's no question about your passion for the game, your passion for your teams. What a tough year to go through, but I think the future has to be bright for Lincoln soccer, especially if you're sticking around. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah,
going forward.
I'll be around. I'm graduating to a phase of looking at it as just like what I do, and I want to be there for successive generations, see what happens, and then I'm going home and I'm going hiking.
I love it. Honestly, I think it's super cool, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Fellas, I meant everything I said tonight. Like, it's real. It's felt. So I thank you deeply.
Thanks, Jack.
For all of us.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
All right, guys.
All right, Siebes, that was fun, maybe a little emotional, or at least for me.
It was awesome.
It was
For me.
awesome. It was. Yeah, I just, same thing. I think it was super cool to talk to Jack and hear his story about his, him, but then also his boys. Obviously, that was the reason we were here.
Absolutely, and hopefully his boys will appreciate. The boy wears his heart on his sleeve, and passionate, emotional, dedicated.
Yeah, all
you
the
keep
things.
going, right?
Yeah, all the things. What a great guy, and what a great conversation. So if you've been enjoying, actually, I spoke to Bob Motterson, and he watched the whole Kennedy interview and really enjoyed it. So if you happen to be watching on YouTube right now, you will notice that we're in a little bit of a different room.
Switcheroo.
Yeah, the old switcheroo. It's a little. This is if you've ever watched the old Men in Blazers podcast, it's kind of like their panic room today. Normally we have kind of an expansive studio, and today we're in the closet, aren't we?
We are, and we've again we're gonna hassle Jack because he didn't bring us anything.
That's
But
true.
a lot of the stuff back here behind us is our jerseys, scarves.
We have a first here too. We have signed shorts.
Yeah, shorts.
Nope.
Like,
Yeah, signed shorts. That's great. But
I mean, it's Katie Naughton from the Houston Dash, but
No big deal.
But you're right. No big deal. Just a pro player.
just a pro player. Anyway, so yeah, if you've been enjoying that YouTube stuff, let us know. If you like the new website, let us know. Join the Supporters Club. We're going to be sending out our swag bags here pretty soon, and kind of calling that good here soon. So better get on it. The swag bags are sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a person in our audience tonight
We do.
that is a supporter.
We do. Shout out to Colin, the
One
boy
of the,
Sievers.
yeah, one of the two.
Yeah, exactly. The second one just left. So yeah, do you want to hit us with some social media, Sieves?
Absolutely. So follow us on Facebook at KIF Soccer. Follow us on Instagram at KIF Soccer, and then on Twitter at KIF_soccer.
So close.
I know we're working on it, but like you mentioned earlier, Ben, the website www.kifsoccer.com. Supporters Club is on there. YouTube, search Kick It Forward.
Yeah, right on. You're getting good at this, Sieves. What is this, episode 80 though? So maybe 81?
It's got to be up there, yeah.
Oh my. All right. Well, means in 2021 we're gonna hit episode 100.
Stay tuned.